attention here. If we'll, everybody please take your seats if you can find one, and we're going to get started here in just a moment. Wow, everybody got quiet quickly. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started now. My name is John Albers. I serve in the Georgia State Senate, District 56, which is parts of Cobb, Cherokee, and Fulton County. And I'm honored today to open this official first study committee for Senate Resolution 275 to order. We're going to go through a little bit of logistics and setup for this meeting today. We're going to hear from some of the folks who are gracious enough to host us here, as well as we've got some speakers. So we're going to go through this process, hopefully in a very organized fashion. We have a list of people that will be speaking today. If you came here today in hopes of speaking to the committee and you were not already talked to on the agenda, we do not have room for that today. However, we're having 5 more meetings, and if you do have an interest in speaking, please see myself or Allie Farmer, who I believe is making sure everybody can get into this room right now, so we can look at a future agenda to possibly put you in. So let me begin by a little bit of history of how we got here today. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones came to me early this legislative session and said one of his priorities was going to be workforce, both for who worked for the state as well as how we supported our private businesses, and asked if I would be willing to chair a study committee to go all over our state of Georgia, because we are a very unique and diverse state, to find out how we as a state can better prepare the workforce for the future. Now that involved a lot of key areas, from kindergarten and 12th grade to our technical college system, our university system, to our small businesses, our medium, our large businesses, our great partners for associations, chambers of commerce, businesses alliances, and all the folks that work together to make that perfect recipe, which is Georgia's success. We are the #1 place to do business for 9 years. I know we're all very proud of that. The only problem with being #1 is everyone wants to knock us off. So we have to continue to stay ahead of that, and the workforce obviously is a key and critical component to doing that. So in a moment, I'm going to ask each one of our committee members to just spend a few minutes to introduce themselves. But aside from our regular committee, we have a working committee set up. And that working committee behind the scene is helping to provide a lot of the information that feeds into these meetings. So I want to take a moment to recognize some of those folks in our Senate press office who help put together logistics here. And we're going to hear from them in a few minutes about the website and other things, is Lexi Giuliani and Emily Leonard. We're very happy to have them. We also have, he's on his way here right now, Mr. Brad Vaughn. He is with the Lieutenant Governor's office. We have Haley Williams with our Senate research team. We have Ms. Sean Marie Story, who is one of our esteemed legislative council members who gets to write all the laws that we come up with. And then last but not least, I think all of you have heard from Allie Farmer, who is in my office, who is helping to do a lot of the scheduling and putting together. So that's an important group for you to know. As we continue throughout this process, if you have questions, please direct it to anyone up to and including me if I can best serve you. I want to talk about our meeting schedule first, and you'll see more of this when Lexi gives us an overview of the website. But our next meeting is going to be held in July 25th in lovely Savannah, Georgia, Georgia's first city. And there is in your folders for the committee members, there's a cheat sheet for you. August 22nd, we'll be out at West Point at the Kia plant. September 29th, we'll be in Commerce, somewhere either at or next to SK Innovations. Oh, I'm sorry, 19th. Thank you. October 26th, we'll be up in the Dalton area. And then we will have the final meeting, which will be November the 14th, back at the Georgia Capitol. The 14th of November will really culminate in us creating a report that Haley will talk about in a little bit, but I've already asked her to start, and that will be our recommendations and findings from this committee. From those recommendations and findings, several things could happen. That could be the beginning of us creating legislation in order to make necessary updates and changes to Georgia Code. It could be budgetary items where we want to make more investments. It could just be things that we're going to do as a state through different teams and different groups and different departments in order to help continue fostering the workforce to make sure that we are prepared for what we are going to have in the future, which is hopefully many, many more years of Georgia being the best place to live, work, play, raise a family, and certainly operate a business. So at this time, I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the microphone down. I'm going to walk it down to the end for Dave first, and then we'll pass it down this way to do a quick introduction.
Chairman, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave Williams. I serve as the Senior Vice President for Public Policy and Talent at the Metro Atlanta Chamber. And talent is, I think there's no surprise to anyone, talent is the most pressing challenge that our employers and members face. And so we're happy to be a participant and hope we can contribute. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Jason Estevez, the proud state senator for State Senate District 6, which is northwest Atlanta, parts of Cobb and Fulton County. Also an attorney and small business owner, former educator, sat on the school board in Atlanta, so a lot of these issues are near and dear to my heart.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and even though it was a little hard getting here. But I'm very happy. But I'm Billy Hickman. I'm state senator from the 4th Senatorial District. The main thing I tell people on that, people say, which district is that? I say, well, that was Jack Hill's district. Oh, yeah, I know where that is. But that's all of Evans County, which is Claxton, all of Candler County, which is Metter, all of Bullitt County, which is Statesboro, all of Effingham County, which is Rankin and Springfield, and about 30,000 people down in the Godley Station area of Pooler. So I'm very happy to be. I am also a CPA. I'm a small business owner. We got about 40 accountants with us. So all this stuff kind of makes a good bit of sense to me. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Good afternoon. I am Senator Sonia Halpern, representing District 39, which is right here in Fulton County in the Atlanta area and south. My district is the most socioeconomically diverse district in the state. As it relates to me personally, I have been in business, I have been in not-for-profit and philanthropy, and always concerned and excited about issues of opportunity. And so economic opportunity is always the foundation. And so I'm excited about the work that we'll be doing here and glad to be joining all of you in the effort.
Hello, my name is Greg Dozier. I'm Commissioner of the Technical College System of Georgia, and just proud to be here because our main mission and focus is workforce development. So I appreciate all the support and all the focus.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniela Perry. I serve as the Vice President of the Georgia Chamber Foundation for the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. We're the state's largest business advocacy organization, and the War for Talent is the top priority of our membership. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm William Smith, and I'm here on behalf of Delta Airlines. Obviously, the workforce is near and dear to us, and I would agree that Georgia is an excellent place to work and play.
Champ Bailey, Pro Football, College Football Hall of Famer. I'm an entrepreneur, philanthropist now, businessman, and a Georgia boy, and I am excited to be here. Growing up in this state, now I can actually bring some real value. Thank you.
My name is Ryan. I don't play any sports. But I do own 3 restaurants in North Fulton. I'm excited to be here representing the restaurants and the hospitality industry. Obviously, I'm neck deep in all these employment issues all day, every day, so excited to be able to add some value here.
Thank you. It is a true honor to be a part of such an august group of people. I myself am a small business owner, live in Roswell, and I think each member of this committee is going to bring a very unique perspective as we move forward. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Walt Farrell to come on up and give us a little welcome from Georgia Power.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Walt Farrell. I'm the Vice President of Community and Economic Development here at Georgia Power. It is our privilege to host the study committee, members of the audience here today for this discussion. A large part of what we do is partner with the Department of Economic Development to attract new business to the state. Obviously, as the #1 state to do business for the last 9 years in a row, we're proud to be a part of that team that's helping attract new industry. And we're also focused on community development, so around the state, working with community leaders to help them understand the assets and attributes that they have locally to recruit new business, to attract talent, and to build a workforce pipeline. Really the third pillar of our organization is education and workforce development. You'll hear more from Jamal Jesse, who's going to talk to you today a little bit about that and the different areas that we support the state around workforce and education. Again, privileged to host you guys and proud to be here. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, next I'm going to ask Lexi to come up with our Senate Press Office to tell you about some of our technology and logistics for the committee.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So glad that you all are here. I'm just going to give you all a quick tour of our website. As the working group for this committee was meeting, we worked with Chairman Albers to develop a website to kind of be a hub for information for those who are interested in the work of the committee, as well as a place for people to provide remote testimony to the committee or written testimony to the committee through the website. So I'll just give you all a quick overview. If you're wanting to follow along on your own devices or if you're watching the live stream at home, you're looking for expandinggeorgiasworkforcestudy.com. Again, that's expandinggeorgiasworkforcestudy.com. So just very quickly here on the homepage, if you click on About, you'll be able to see a little bit more about the resolution that created the committee as well as all of the members of the committee. Next, we have our meeting schedule. As Chairman Albers alluded to, we have some upcoming meetings. Our next one is going to be in Savannah. I believe after that we're going to West Point. So all of the details are here. You can click into each one of these, and as we get parking information and all of that sort of thing, for those who are interested in attending, we'll actually compile all of that here. So for any of those people who will be traveling, all of that information will live here once we get official meeting notices and logistics hammered out. But if you're not able to make it to one of these 6 meetings, we're going to be going all around the state as well as having a final meeting at the Capitol. If you're not able to join us at one of those meetings and you still would like to submit written testimony to the committee, we actually have a Google form here on the website if you just click on Submit Testimony. And this is where you can give first name, last name, organization, and submit a statement to the committee if you have particular bits of data or links that you would like to share. And so that will live in a Google Drive that will be available to the committee members. It'll be published as as an appendix in the final report of the committee. So feel free to go online and submit remarks there. After this meeting is concluded, we actually are going to be traveling to live stream and record all of the committee meetings as they take place throughout the state. So all of those will live here where it says video archives on the committee. And then as the committee decides, we will publish news and any documents, reports, overviews, anything that the chairman and the rest of the committee sees fit, we can publish here. And so as documents are coming out of this committee and as work is coming out of this committee, all of this will be available on this website. And I believe that concludes the tour. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about what might be on the website. My contact information is at the footer, so y'all just feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Back
Great
to you.
job, Lexi. Thank you very much. You'll see that we're going to try and do most things electronically, both through the committee, but to make sure that we're being very transparent and inclusive with everybody who wants to participate, you will find all the information there. And I do want to say for anybody who might be watching us via live stream that doesn't have the opportunity to travel, as Lexi mentioned, to please communicate and fill out that form and send your information over to us, because we do want to hear from you. We understand that not all Georgians can make it to these meetings, but every Georgian can certainly participate in this process. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to ask all the committee members. We already have the Senate headshots, but if not, if you'll send us a headshot so we can put that on the website, I would appreciate that. And Billy Hickman sent over his high school mugshot, so I'm trying to get a more current picture. So, all right. Next, I'm going to pass the microphone down to Haley. Haley is with our Senate Research Office. I want to take a moment to explain the great work they do for us. We are a part-time legislature, which means we work about 80 hours a week for a little bit of pay. And seriously, though, having the groups of people such as our Legislative Council, our Senate Press, and our Senate Research is critical to the work that each one of us gets to do when we're either in legislative session or like the things we're doing right now are. And we really rely heavily on Haley and that team to help us out. And before I pass the microphone down, I want to let the committee members know that Haley, being part of a working group, will help us. Don't go crazy trying to find things yourself when she's got an awesome team of people that can help us out. So let's make sure we funnel our requests through that. And we also have one place that will keep all that information together. It'll be really important because we're going to get a lot of different information from different sources, and she'll really be the glue that holds us together.
Thank you. Okay. So I am, just rolled over my skirt. That's good. My name's Haley Williams. I'm going to give this presentation from my seat because you don't need to see me anyways. But I do want to start off, as Chairman Albers mentioned, I am responsible for producing the comprehensive final report that comes out of the study committee. So any suggestions that come from the committee members or otherwise should all come to me. Also, housekeeping matter, any prospective speakers should be sending me any materials at least 2 business days prior to the meeting at which you plan to speak, because it needs to be screened. So, other than that, let me see if this works. Oh, okay, cool. So I would like to preface with a couple of disclaimers. First of all, regarding the data, everything that you're going to hear does come from official sources, and it's the most up-to-date information that is publicly available. However, a lot of the annual reports that are referenced through here are updated in the fall of the year following. So a lot of this is going to be reflective of 2021, but it won't be, terribly far off. And a full list of references will be included with this presentation when it is uploaded to the website. Also, regarding content, this could be a 2-day seminar, and I'm gonna just do this in about 15 minutes. So keep in mind that this is an overview. It is not meant to be comprehensive. If I leave something off, it's not personal. It's just an accident. Just kidding. Moving on, just to give you an idea of where we're gonna go, I'm gonna cover a little information about the current workforce, and then some info about the top industries in Georgia, and then some of our workforce development initiatives in the state, particularly in the last 5 to 10 years. So, start us off, Georgia has a workforce of about 5.1 million people. As you can see, unemployment rate's 3.4%. That's actually up a little from last year, but there are a lot of reasons for that. And for your information, these are the top 5 occupational groups in the state. This is where the majority of Georgians are employed one way or the other. And as you can see, I've got a little 5-year information and then more recent. So between 2017 and 2021, Georgia did add 130,000 new jobs to the workforce. And despite having a huge drop in job openings in April 2020, this is an interesting stat to me. There was 1 opening for every 4 unemployed people, and by July 22, there were 3 openings for every unemployed person. So great sign, bouncing back quickly. During the first half of FY23, the most jobs were created outside of the metro area, which has been a pretty big problem in Georgia over the past several years. Rural workforce development is a lot more difficult than metro Atlanta development. So Atlanta is the 6th most sought after location for professionals to migrate to, and unfortunately that doesn't take us down to Valdosta for employment purposes. Okay, a lot of text on this, but I'm gonna go through several of Georgia's top industries, starting with advanced manufacturing, which does encompass pretty much every sector in the state, but about 300,000 Georgians do work in some kind of production capacity. Of course, there's aerospace, automotive, defense, food processing, life sciences. Aerospace, automotive, defense, and food processing are pretty straightforward. Life sciences will include things like insulin pumps and other medical devices, but it could also be more like intellectual type production, such as in the pharmaceutical realm. Also digital health, as in, telehealth and other things that are available through technology. Of course, we have agribusiness, which is the leading industry, and energy, which the Department of Economic Development estimates will invest $5 billion in the state within the next decade, and then logistics and supply chain. Georgia is really well known for a very robust logistics and infrastructure system. Obviously, we all know that Hartsfield-Jackson is incredibly busy and efficient. The Port of Savannah is incredibly busy nowadays. It's only getting busier. It's actually the number one export. It's the number one port for exporting automotives. And that's a recent statistic as well. Arts, film, TV production. Obviously, we all know about the very attractive tax incentives for the film industry that they're bringing about $4 billion into the economy every year. Tourism, which includes hotels, also, you know, the fees that we get from Airbnbs, but also little tours and things. The classic definition of tourism is one of the largest industries in Georgia as well. And then corporate innovation. We always hear Georgia referred to as Silicon Valley of the South. Obviously, these are, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep saying obviously. These innovation centers are scattered throughout the metro area mostly, and it's only growing as well. And then technology, which encompasses cybersecurity, data centers, financial technology. An interesting fact, payment processing firms in Georgia handle 70% of the transactions in the United States. I find that fascinating. Not sure if you guys do. Now, on to our workforce initiatives that are already existing in Georgia. Most of it is based in education because talent is made and not necessarily brought in all the time. So I'll go through a little bit of information that's related to K through 12 education specifically, then post-secondary, and then some other things that are a little of both. First of all, in our K through 12 systems, we have got a great dual enrollment program that has expanded significantly over the last several years, as well as participation has grown significantly. CTAE programs, which include mostly, technical and agricultural things, they are very successful. There are several career clusters or pathways that students can participate in school that sets them up to either receive certificates or test for one. College and career academies have become really popular throughout the state. They actually do collaborate with different people in the community to work on workforce development initiatives and public-private partnerships with schools and local businesses and larger businesses. For example, I've got this Textron company that is in Augusta, and they've actually developed their own program that works with the school system there to bring in, lower income and higher risk students to actually train them to do jobs that they can continue after graduation. Higher education initiatives, we have USG, we also have TCSG. TCSG arguably has a lot more specific programs that lend themselves to workforce development. But USG has some interesting things. These are just a couple of highlights from USG. A new tool that just came out recently, the Career Resource Planning platform, is, from what I've heard, a very comprehensive sort of one-stop shop for career planning. And it connects students with actual alumni and people that are in the workforce currently who can give them direct advice and give them more realistic ideas about what to expect after graduation and what sort of skills that they actually need, rather than, algebra and things like that. And then the Nexus degree program is particularly interesting. It's a different credential. It would, parallel a BA or something like that. And they also are available to people who don't even have degrees. If they just want to teach themselves about a certain skill set in an industry that they already work in, or if they want to make a move, these programs are available. And the first graduates with this credential graduated from Columbus State in December of 2020. And I haven't heard much about what they have to say about the program, but it was successful, at least for them. And then TCSG, we'll talk quite a bit about. They have a number of free resources for those who don't have degrees at all, people who want to take their GED exam. TCSG has also recently been given the authority to grant a high school equivalency diploma. So they offer prep courses for those exams. The Hope Career Grant also covers 100% of tuition or up to it for these high demand fields. And there are also courses that they don't offer any sort of credit or any sort of certificate, but they will set you up for exams to get certifications related to an industry that a professional currently works in. They also have included a nursing reentry program, because that has been very important, as we all know, with the pandemic. Everyone was scrambling to get more nurses in, and TCSG stepped up to the plate. TCSG also has a workforce division. Of course, Mr. Dozier will have to correct me if any of this is a little off, but the workforce division is responsible for administering funds throughout the state, grant funds for they administer grant funds. Georgia Quick Start has been ranked for 13 years now as the #1 workforce development tool in the country. I am unsure of who decides on these rankings, but it is very popular, and it comes up in so many articles and reports and things. When I was doing research for this, I was very impressed at how Georgia Quick Start is actually used as sort of a template for other states who are trying to get some sort of tool like this. But for certain businesses, particularly new businesses, small ones, they can get some free training and free resources from this program to maximize their potential for success. So I'm actually almost done. To finish up, Georgia sees talent and skill as a renewable resource. As I said before, it's not something that needs to be imported, but it all starts in education, and I think that Georgia has done a great job at capitalizing on this, but we can always do more. Most of our initiatives are education-based, and that's sort of inherent. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to field them.
Questions from any committee members?
This was an overwhelming amount of information to put into a short time, but thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Haley. That was a lot of information. The reason why we wanted to do a quick overview of that was to set a foundation for everyone. I hope what you realize is lots of good things are happening in Georgia right now. Great coordination, great work from all the different areas that we provide from the public and private sector. So you might be thinking, well, then why are we having this committee, John? Because we have to do even better now. You saw when Haley was presenting how many job openings there are versus people available to take those jobs. What we've also learned is whether it is a kid who has pretty much made up their mind by middle school what they want to do, or it's an adult who now had decided to make a career change, or the field they were in before is being sunsetted for a new opportunity. There's things that we have to continue to do better and better each and every day. One of the things that the Lieutenant Governor asked to do, and we passed into law, was Senate Bill 3 this year. And that was primarily on the government side, where we create job requirements like each and every one of you might do in the private marketplace. And you create a job description, and you'll post that job description. What we found in the state is some of our stuff was a little bit out of date. And in some cases, we were missing the very best and brightest in talent because of that. And I actually used a couple of examples for technology jobs we had. Some of them had required 10 years of experience, but the software had only been around for 3. Some of them required college degrees, but Bill Gates could not apply for those jobs, who created Microsoft because he did not graduate from college. So we have to find the unique balance to make sure that we're not ever undervaluing education, because it's very important. But at the same point, we do not want to over-educate to the point where people have a large amount of student debt and they don't have a job that's going to be able to have that return on investment for them in the future. So we have a lot of options here. Again, it's really to connect the dots, which is a lot what we're going to do in this committee. I've got it. Okay. This one we're going to switch to start hearing testimony from folks today. And again, I want to remind everybody, if you're not on our agenda today, to please reach out to us either via directly or through the website or email, whatever is your preferred method of communication. We will not be able to hear from each and every Georgian. There's not going to be enough time in all these committee meetings, but some cases we'll consolidate folks together to help represent certain industries or certain areas. Again, knowing that very unique in each and every part of our state, as has already been mentioned. So we're going to begin, again, we're going to go back to Georgia Power. Jamal, if you would come up, please, sir, and present at the microphone. We'd love to hear about the workforce needs from Georgia Power, and thanks for keeping the lights on.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jamal Jesse, and I'm a Workforce Development Manager for Georgia Power. And today I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the workforce challenges we're seeing across the state, as well as some of the work that we're doing at Georgia Power to address some of those challenges. So, Haley, I applaud you. You did a great job with your data points. You actually took a couple of mine. But one thing I did want to highlight is that the 5.1 million workers in the workforce is a great number. It's a high number. It's a number that's higher than pre-pandemic. 180,000 Georgians unemployed. At the height of the pandemic in 2020 in March, it was 600,000. And unemployment at 3.2%. So we should be in a good position, but when you go to your communities, that's not what we're hearing. We're hearing that we're having problems filling vacancies. We're hearing that we're having challenges with people with skills. And basically, there's just a lot of issues that we're realizing that's going on right now, that although we have a strong workforce, there's a lot of opportunities to improve it. So a couple things that I've kind of noticed, as well as our research team, that are causing some of these issues are, for one, record job creation. We have large job creation, new projects coming to the state. The second is skills mismatch. We have 54% of the jobs in Georgia require less than a four-year degree, but more than a high school diploma. So that's very important that we look at the skills mismatch. And then also there's over 800,000 Georgians that don't have a high school diploma or GED. So obviously that's a huge problem to solve for one group. So that's why we're here to work with you all and collaborate with our partners across the state, business industry, government, education, to kind of look at addressing those challenges. And at Georgia Power, we have three focus areas that we support: building a workforce of the future, strengthening education, and supporting policy and funding. So I'll talk a little bit more about building the workforce of the future, and that's how we partner with our communities to grow economic development and work with them to help grow their workforce. And a couple different things that we're doing with them is, as we heard about these different projects coming to the state and working with those communities, we realized that a lot of communities didn't really have a plan. They didn't have a roadmap to address some of these new job creations and influx of work coming to the industry. So we worked with the Carl Vinson Institute to develop a workforce state planning guide. So this gives communities a chance to identify their market, look at the supply and demand needs of the workforce, and really kind of build out a strategic plan of how they can address this and make sure that they have a plan in place to make sure that we are creating opportunities for Georgians as well as meeting the needs of business industry. A second thing we talked about is our work with the Technical College System of Georgia. At the TCSG, we have 8 electrical line worker programs, and these are great programs that really help us grow our workforce at Georgia Power. These pre-apprenticeship programs really help with the skills mismatch that we're realizing a lot of students that are coming into the workforce aren't able to go into the jobs at Georgia Power, as well as our industry partners. So the partnerships with the TCSG has been very beneficial to not only Georgia Power, but as well as the industry. And then also I'll share a little bit about the work that we're doing with Hyundai down in the JDA down there in Savannah, Chatham, Effingham, and Bullitt counties. We are working with them to identify their markets, as they have 8,000 plus jobs coming to that region, to look at where the opportunities are, what is the supply, demand of that particular market, how are they looking to address the needs of Hyundai as well as their suppliers, and just making sure that they have a strategic plan in place to address the needs for the auto industry and the EV market that's coming out to that region. The next thing I want to talk about is our work with strengthening education. We align with the Georgia Department of Education to support Georgia's Standards of Excellence, we have an organization that's called Learning Power. And Learning Power is a group of educators that go out to K-12 schools. We teach energy efficiency lessons to students, and we align those with the Georgia Standards of Excellence to ensure that they are in line with the curriculum developments to introduce students to STEM, as well as energy efficiency opportunities across the state. The next thing I want to talk about is our work with CTAE and College Career Academies. We are working with the CTAE to make sure that pathways are aligned to key industries to ensure that students that are going into those have the right skills to be ready to go into the workforce, as well as we're working with our economic development to make sure that school districts have economic development certifications to make sure that they are in partnership with economic development, business and education to ensure that those school districts are preparing students for the opportunities that are ahead. And then the other thing I want to add is our work with teacher externships. Just left Georgia Power. We are welcoming 14 teachers to our organization for 3 days of externships. They'll go around and learn about different parts of the business, kind of ride around a bucket truck, see the work that Georgia Power does, so that way they can take that message back to their students and talk to them about those careers. So when that student decides to graduate college or high school, they can consider Georgia Power or our industry as a particular employer of choice. Last thing I want to talk about is our funding, policy funding work to address education and workforce training needs. Our Georgia Power Foundation biannually has a workforce grant that they work with schools to provide for new pathways as well as existing pathways. This again helps align with the needs of the industry and make sure schools have pathways in place that are training people to go into those jobs to meet industry standard needs. So this was just a little bit of work that we're doing at Georgia Power. We realized that by partnering with our government leaders as well as our education partners, our nonprofit partners, that we can all kind of collaboratively work to do this work and make sure that we actually build Georgia a workforce for the future. Any questions?
First, let me just say thank you for this great presentation. I think I've got a question from Senator Hickman.
Well, I think it's more of a statement than a question, but we were actually seeing, because I didn't really know what his College and Career Academy was until I got in the Senate, and I've become a big fan of, and of course in Statesboro we don't call them that, we call them pathways because we have a Get You Technical College there. But one thing that they're doing in our area, Gulfstream and the Ports Authority are now reaching down into the high school level and taking some of these students out of high school and doing internships with them. So they're actually kind of like in football now, Jason. They're actually dropping down further and realizing they got to go down to the 10th grade and start identifying kids and put them in internships so hopefully get them at that level to go to work for them. I'm a big fan of that.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I didn't catch the name of the program, but I wanted to hear a little bit more when you talked about how you're working with school districts and aligning them with economic development. I love the concept, and I know that some of my children too have been in schools where the principal himself has said, my job isn't to get you out of like elementary school or middle school. My job is to prepare you actually for 2030 when you're out of college and working. If you go to college, but when you're working. So really to prepare students from the time they hit elementary to be ready for 21st century jobs. Is that something, can you tell us more about that?
So
and
I
how
think
many school districts you're working with, and where's the buy-in for programs like that?
So maybe talking about two different things. We may be talking about Learning Power, the K-12 energy efficiency lessons. Okay, you're talking about the Economic Development Certification. Okay, so the Economic Development Certification is a program through the Department of Education under the CTAE program. And we partner with them to work with school districts to earn this Economic Development Certification. They have to apply. There's an application that they apply to, and they go through about a 9-month period of evaluation to ensure that their curriculum, as well as the work that they're doing, are in line with economic development, as well as education and business industry. And you can find more about that on the CTAE website, Economic Development Certification Center.
That's great. And following that same logic, I think that, kids, when they're exposed to things at a young age, right, and this is not necessarily meant just to be about children, but Georgia Power, obviously a storied entity here for our state, and literally does so much goodness in so many communities, whether it be directly or indirectly through the EMCs. How how does that work with you all getting into even the classrooms and that kind of that kindergarten through 5th grade or middle school so they can get exposed to that? Do you have any programs like that?
I tell you, Senator, we're actually in pre-K. we're reading to pre-K students, and as I talked about our Learning Power program, that's a program that we are in 155 of the 159 counties around the state of Georgia. We're teaching energy efficiency lessons to K through 12, and we're talking about the different careers with Georgia Power, as well as in the energy industry as well. We also work with our college and career academies to actually do summer internships for students. So we're not only talking to them about the careers K through 12, but once they get into 12th grade, we're talking a little bit more to them about the careers, and we're bringing them to our facilities to what's called a day in the life, where they actually tour the facility, look at the work we're doing, and see if there's something they're interested in, and then we follow that with an internship over the summer. And we've had 21 people started last Monday.
Fantastic. I've read to a lot of those groups as well. They're terrific. They're not that excited to hear from state senators, to be honest with you. But when I bring my fire helmet and tell them I'm a fireman, I'm usually a pretty big hit. So, other questions from our committee members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next up, Sharon Mason with our very own Cobb Chamber of Commerce, one of the counties I'm honored to represent. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Senator Albers, for this invitation and to this entire study committee on this important work. It is great to be with you all. As Senator mentioned, I'm honored to serve as the Cobb Chamber's president and CEO, working very closely with our Metro Chamber, Georgia Chamber, and many chambers across the state, and here to talk a lot about the partnership initiatives, public-private partnerships that should hopefully help us along the way with the study committee. Also want to mention Amanda Seals, our EVP of Advocacy and Government Affairs, is with me as well, and I know many of you know her and working on many different things over the years. And for me personally, I've enjoyed chamber industry now over 21 years because we get to work with so many partners in this room and outside of this room. And each one of you are critical in this because workforce, as we know, there's many pieces to this puzzle, and partnerships is at the heart of everything we're doing here. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the successes because you mentioned some of the investments in workforce, and we're really realizing and seeing those come to fruition in our local communities. And it's great for you to know that those investments are really paying off, and they're making a major difference. And so for us, I know you heard this from Metro Chamber and Georgia Chamber, number one issue we've heard from businesses, especially from our strategic planning process. We just got through hearing from over 500 stakeholders, and the challenge of workforce came up not only loud and clear as the top challenge, but really 5 times greater than it did even 5 years ago. So that really shows you how things have changed. And I know for all of us, we're very proud, as Senator Albers mentioned, being number one state to do business. But it's important that we drive those innovative solutions to keep it that way. And for us in Cobb, the top reason companies are choosing Cobb, choosing our state of Georgia, is because of our talent and because of our pipeline. And so initiatives like this study committee, even businesses knowing that we're driving solutions is going to make a major difference. And I know in our local communities we'll really be utilizing this as part of our talking points in this. And for us, I know many local chambers across the state, and we get together. Dave's on a regional business coalition. We meet quarterly to share best practices. We started Cobb Workforce Partnership actually 8 years ago, and that was really to bring together K through 12 higher education and our target industries to really drive solutions so we could work together on a lot of things. And I know a lot of our local communities are doing the same thing. And so from that helped us really be able to elevate some needed work, and some of those things that we even started back 8 years ago we're seeing come to fruition. One of the first things out of the gate that we focused on was supporting the college and career academy development, especially advocating for the funding in different places. And Commissioner Dozier, you know this so well and have been such a critical part of this. And so for us in Cobb County, we have one College and Career Academy on Marietta campus, one Cobb Innovation Technology Academy in Cobb County Schools, another one that just got approved for funding through our education SPLOST, so we'll have a third coming up. But we already have 2 open that just opened up a few years ago, and we're already seeing the results of that. We're already seeing students not only increasing graduation rates, but really being able to find their talent, their passion, and jobs available that they didn't realize, wow, this pays a lot. This is a great career for me. We hear that over and over from our great partners there and over from testimonials. That's a great example. And I think the more we can expand upon that, the better. Secondly, Vector, Commissioner Dozier, wanted to give you another shout out as well, because we just had the second Vector Center actually open in Marietta on Chattahoochee Tech's campus. And this was something for us and our local community, and I want to give a shout out to Colonel Ross, who's now Commissioner Ross for our Veterans Affairs. She was phenomenal, and she really showed us in Warner Robins, the first Vector Center, how effective that model could be. And I know several of us, several business leaders, we went down and we visited her down in Warner Robins and saw how veterans, you could easily help transition into it. And if you're not familiar with that, Veteran stands for Veterans Education Career Transition Resource. That's exactly what it's intended to do. And it really becomes a one-stop shop for veterans to help them transition in their careers in partnership with technical colleges. I know this would be a great model to have across the state, really having two that are going to be highly successful, and then seeing Warner Robins doing so well. And the Vector Center, really appreciate our state legislative delegation. We're able to get $2.25 million in funding approved to renovate an existing building on Chattahoochee Tech's campus in Marietta. And that really dovetailed that support, because we have hundreds of thousands of veterans in Northwest Georgia, plus the technical college, and just being a one-stop shop. So excited to see more opportunities there. Also having Dobbins Air Reserve Base in our backyard. We've really been involved with the Georgia Joint Defense Commission, and that group has been driving legislation that helps more veterans transition in their careers. And I think the more that we can do that, the better, making Georgia even more veteran-friendly. That is a group to really focus on. Next, with our universities, and I know we've got some great folks at KSU and many other universities here represented, the support from the state for funding our universities and very specific projects, as well as K through 12, is making a really big difference. And I know KSU, you're now almost 43,000 students there, and so having the new STEM building approved will make a major difference. And so that was a $34 million plus approval, plus funding for the Hope Scholarship, our teachers, all those things will make a very, very big impact. So thank you. But also, we're seeing from our universities, they are really listening to our businesses, and that's important. That's where the collaboration is coming in play. And so Cobb Workforce Partnership, something we've been trying to do is really be that resource for our universities to say, hey, this is coming down the line. This new degree program, this is really needed. And I did want to give KSU a shout out, because this is really incredible. So according to the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, new data science jobs, they're projected to increase 36% by 2031. I mean, that's tremendous. And so just this spring, KSU was approved by the Board of Regents to offer a Bachelor of Science in Data and Analytics. And so that really gives them that full suite of degrees, bachelor's, master's, doctorate, that will really help. And that's fantastic jobs. I mean, the median salary is over $100,000. We know that's going to be great. So kudos to KSU, thank you. And I think that's a great example of really collaboration, listening. And then I'll also say industry-specific legislation is making a really big difference. So Senate Bill 6, thank you, enabling more aerospace jobs, and in particular Lockheed, to expand in our local community. And then, I mean, this whole legislative delegation, y'all have supported so many great initiatives. Our incubators across the state, Georgia Tech, Hatch Bridge with KSU, again, has been great. Then the training programs, Georgia Quick Start, you mentioned this, Haley, thank you. Locally in Cobb, the WorkSource Cobb's Power Up pre-apprenticeship program has been phenomenal and really making a big difference. So the more programs like that, I know we've got a regional workforce board as well, and so all of those things really drive a lot of great things. We're also seeing locally with the CARES Act funding and with ARPA funding, a lot of our local commissioners are using those for more workforce needs. I know particular for us in Cobb County, in 2020, we were able to administer over 50 million in small business grants to over 3,700 companies just to help in that gap. And that was thanks to our Cobb Board of Commissioners. And then now through ARPA, we're administering daycare grants because that's a very critical need. And so really each local community looking at those innovative solutions to drive is absolutely critical. You'll see in front of you, we did provide our annual report from Select Cobb, which is our economic development arm, and this gives some great resources about some very innovative programs. A lot of them are brand new. So one of them, you'll see Realign Restart. That's a partnership with Workforce Cobb, Cobb Sheriff's Office, Chattahoochee Technical College, Construction Ready. They just had their first set of graduates, 13 graduating from Construction Ready. And what it gave was inmates who were 90 days from being released, they were trained on the job. And so that way when they get out, they're able to get into the workforce, really turn their life around. And it makes such a big difference. And so you'll see that. And we've had a lot of other great programs that we're very proud of. Be Proud, Youth to Men program. A lot of these things explained here, even driving some new solutions like HR Roundtable. But I will say something we heard from our workforce task force is that a lot of businesses don't know about all these resources. And so the more education, more marketing about them, the better. That will make a big difference. And in closing, I just thank you again. Here is a resource here to help and here to answer questions.
Thank you so much for everything that you're doing for Cobb County and also with the partners. And I think you brought something up that is particularly important, Sharon, which is making sure that our business community is working with our university and technical college system to connect the dots. I always use the example that if you're getting a degree in Scandinavian art history, there's only one job when that person retires. We need to connect the dots to make sure that they are in fact doing that. You representing your members and having everything from Commissioner Dozier and all of our Regents universities together helping to funnel that is really, really important. And certainly the Vector Center, if you have not got to see or learn about that, I'd encourage everyone to do that. Are there any specific things that you would like to see, Sharon, as an output from this committee, that if you could just wave your magic wand and say, this is the one thing that I want?
I think the continued investment in our technical college system, in our university system, universities, all those programs, they are major drivers for economic development and workforce development, and they help in so many different ways, and I mentioned several. And then also our K through 12, as we talked about. It starts at pre-K, really, for the interest for these students, and so the counselors, that was a great investment in the state session this year of investing in more counselors. So those type of initiatives, and then other innovative solutions like the Vector, I know is serving a great purpose in Northwest Georgia. The one in Warner Robinson is serving a great purpose and really a great model in working with our technical colleges. And then other industry-related workforce solutions also will make a major difference too.
That's great. Well, having Commissioner Dozier, but also Senator Hickman chairs our Senate Higher Education Committee, so we've got the right people listening. Are there any questions from the committee members? Senator Estevez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question / comment, Sharon, thank you so much for all that you and the Cobb Chamber are doing. I appreciate the fact that y'all focused on partnerships, and as the chairman mentioned, having that K-12 higher education business partnership is extremely important. And I've seen, having been on the school board, how effective it is to have that partnership at each level and reach for students, as Senator Hickman said, 10th grade, 11th grade, earlier, and giving them information. You mentioned that your members often don't have the information about all the resources available. Students also don't necessarily have that information available, and or they may be interested in a career or an apprenticeship or an internship. They may not know how to get there. So one question that I had is related, and you touched on this, the importance of counselors, the importance of people at the school level who can provide students with specific information, because really what we need to be doing, and you see examples of this in your information, is handing a roadmap to these individuals. And when you hand them the roadmap, they're able to follow it and complete it.
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. You hit the nail on the head. That is so true. And students is important. A lot of them don't realize that there are all these great careers out there that would match their passion, their ability, and great paying jobs, and more heavily available than other career paths that might not lead to as great of a job as some might. And so that is a great opportunity with the counselors to really guide them and help match what their interest level is, what their passion is, where they're going to excel. That's critically important. And that's also where the college and career academies do play such a vital role, because you really hands-on get to experience different things and realize things you may not be good at, or things that might be right up your alley that are perfect for you and where you're going to be interested. And they also lead to internships, because sometimes students need to try out things to see what is the best pathway for them. And so all of those play a critical role. The parent education, the student education, the overall business education as well, and making sure we're matching up all to move forward for our workforce pipeline.
Thank you. Can I ask a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things you hit on, and I have not paid a lot of attention to this until lately, but I'm having more and more people, and you hit on it earlier about daycare and the cost of daycare being so high. And I'm sure you got a lot of young parents in this room. I don't know what it is, but they tell me could be several $100s a week type deal. And so what we're having is that right? Oh, really? Seriously? Oh, wow. So we've got a real issue there, because we got parents that can't afford that. So the moms have made, and so I think it's kind of like a seesaw thing, because the kids, the mother stopped working. So maybe she's at home now working with the children, reading to them at night, helping them read. But yet, on the other hand, the parents can't afford to send them to daycare. So there's some issues there that we got to balance out. The other thing that, and this is kind of a paid announcement here, we will kick off our literacy council, which is creating an educated workforce sometime in August. And one of those key issues that we're going to be looking at in that is pre-K and K through 12. Because what we're finding out, and I'll give you all an example, is that in Candler County, which is one of the counties I represent, when I talked to Bubba Longyear, the superintendent in that county, I said, how many kids in Candler County qualify for pre-K? He said 140. I said, how many do you have in school? He said 110. I said, where are the other 30 children at? He said, they're at home. I said, why are they at home? He said, two reasons. He said, the parents have to elect for them to go to pre-K. It's not a mandatory situation. And the other thing is, we don't have any other pre-K authorized daycares or church centers that kind. So you got 30 kids in that county every year that is already 1 year behind kids that go to pre-K. Then the other thing we got to look at is, and we dropped a bill on this and we're waiting on a fiscal note, is the mandatory age for children to go to kindergarten, be in school, is 6 to 16. So my birthday's in September. School starts in August. My parents don't have to send me to school until the next year. So Jason's already 2 years ahead of me in school. So when we get to the third grade and they start doing these tests on us to see how our literacy rate's off, my literacy rate's way behind his. So all of a sudden, I can't psychologically deal with it, that he's so far ahead of me. So there's issues like this, that all this stuff is so timely with what we're talking about here today, and then also the creating an educated workforce.
You're absolutely right.
Thank you.
And yes, pre-K is critical, and that feeds into success later in life. I know you'll see many studies behind that. And then also the daycare, that we've heard that that's a major issue for a lot of families trying to get back to the workforce. And so we really appreciate Cobb Board of Commissioners allowing us to, and partnering with us to administer grants for daycares through Select Cobb, and that should help. That helps specifically with the local Cobb community, but I know a lot of local communities are looking at best ways to utilize those funds to help in needs like that. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Yes,
Sharon,
Danielle.
I was so glad that you mentioned, so many businesses that are taking proactive steps to really engage with their K-12 systems and their higher education systems. I think what Senator Estevez shared about really helping students build that roadmap, is so critical. And then what Senator Halpern was talking about, kind of building these economic development strategies around those partnerships. But I think certainly the opportunity is really to do this at scale, not to kind of just do one company here and one school here. So I would love your thoughts just on kind of building kind of a more cohesive strategy at the local level and state level as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities to expand upon some of these great successes we've had in many communities, and especially focus on specific emerging industries like logistics, supply chain that we've seen growing. I know hospitality and tourism have been a major industry. There's many others of looking at industry specific as well.
Other questions from the committee members? All right, seeing none, thank you so much
Great,
for your
thank
presentation.
you, Senator, thank you.
Next, we're going to have UPS, Stephen Jones, if you want to make your way up here. And first, I want to just mention that we have Mr. Nick Smith here, which is no stranger to us. He was a tremendous asset to our state, and you are fortunate to have him. And I do also want to just mention a quick story. Oz Nelson, the former chairman and CEO of UPS, was a good personal friend of mine as well as a fraternity brother. And we got to speak on the same stage many times together. And I remember meeting with Oz and asking him, he made the decision to move UPS from the Northeast down to Atlanta many years ago. And I asked him, what was the single, overriding decision to make such a big move to such a storied company like UPS to Georgia? And he said, the answer was actually pretty simple, John. He said, it wasn't that we had every answer in Georgia, but we had the grit and determination to figure out what the answer would be to all those questions. So tremendous man and mentor to me personally, and thank you for representing UPS and talking to us today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. My name's Steve Jones, and I'm the Director of HR Planning for UPS, and I'm very passionate about workforce development. Been involved in workforce development for 22 years. Had the privilege and honor to serve on the United States Secretary of Labor's Advisory Committee on Apprenticeship for 10 years. And help with the apprenticeship programs in the country as well. But when you think about UPS in general, people think about the brown trucks. And what I say is that we hire everything from people who unload trailers in the middle of the night to pharmacists, to nurses, to automobile mechanics. Anything that you can think of, we hire. We have about 530,000 employees globally. And when you think about 530,000 employees, what does it take to staff an organization our size? It's a big effort. So just a little bit about background. We're seeing that job growth is still robust, and most industries are back to pre-pandemic levels of employment. I would encourage the committee to actually look at the Conference Board's reports on labor for the next 10 years, because labor shortages are here to stay. We are not going to have enough employees in the United States or in Georgia to fill every single job opening. And so we're going to have to do some things differently within the country, particularly for industries like UPS or for the restaurant industries, which require in-person service workers. We're seeing that the signs of the current labor shortage are past us to the worst extent. We're starting to see that come better. Wage growth is strong, particularly blue-collar wage growth is stronger than white-collar wage growth at this time. And we're going to continue to see that trend here in Georgia and elsewhere because we do not produce enough blue-collar workers in the United States. Our education systems are designed to get everybody to be college-ready versus career-ready, and I would encourage the committee to look at career-ready employment as well as college-ready education systems. So as we look at our economy over the next few months, we think job growth will continue to slow going into the second half of the year. We expect the number of job openings to decline, and we expect the unemployment rate to grow in the United States to about 4.5% by the end of the year. As I said, any recession that we do go into is only going to ease recruitment and retention difficulties for a temporary time period. Labor shortages are here at least until 2030, and I'm seeing as far out as till 2040. And we're going to continue to face those pressures. That requires companies like UPS to change our employee value proposition, to change how we go to market, to be more adaptable. It also requires us to provide career development opportunities for our own employees. So one of the things that we do that's unique is even for our part-time employees, every part-time employee here in the state of Georgia has the ability to use our Earn and Learn program, which we will pay $5,250 a year of college tuition for them, as long as they're employed with UPS. We think that's a great differentiator of ours. But we need to learn how, in the current labor markets, how to do some things differently. Job skills are going to change. And so one of the other things that I would encourage the committee to look at is capabilities and job skills. Because the world changes so rapidly that even with an MBA, 10 years down the road, the skills that you learn are probably outdated. So if people don't learn and companies don't require people to continue to develop skills and capabilities, if we don't encourage that, and we don't have tax policies that encourage that, people become, their jobs go away. And so I would really urge you to look at capabilities and skills. The other thing that I would talk a little bit about is we have to look at labor differently, and we have to look at it as a talent pool versus a labor pool. And a talent pool allows us to identify skills that then can become capabilities. And we, as companies, need to be able to provide training opportunities to build the necessary expertise. Earlier we mentioned that in the state of Georgia that we asked for 10 years for things for 3 years. There are many jobs that are that way across a lot of industries, because we haven't, as industry and as government and as policymakers, started to make this shift to capabilities, and capabilities is where it's going to go. It'll be interesting to see how that ends up in the next 10 years. I wanted to just talk about some skills at UPS that we need right now. In my previous role, I was responsible for U.S. talent acquisition and marketing and branding. We, in the United States, if you can tell me where to go find mechanics, both automotive, electrical, truck, diesel, conveyor, plant, aircraft, anything, if you can tell me where to go find them on a regular basis, I'd like to know about it. We don't create them in the United States. We don't incent people to go into it. The barrier to entry to be a mechanic is tools. And so there's programs that could be created that people could get grants to get their first set of tools. The $5,000 is required to get their first job. Mechanics pay between $70,000 and $140,000 a year. I think that's a pretty good job. Maybe we should look into that. The other thing that we don't have enough of in the country is drivers with CDLs. We have well over 100,000 driver shortage right now. We don't have the ability to create programs to train them quick enough to be able to make a difference. If anybody who's lived through the supply chain issues that we've had in the past couple years understands, is that a CDL driver is critical to the economy. Some of the other things that we look at that are really critical for us as a company is people who can problem solve, people who can have computer skills, basic math skills, multitasking abilities, accountability for decision making. Those are some of the skills that we need. We need people who can collaborate, build customer relationship skills. When we talk about these types of things, we don't teach many of these in our school systems. We teach things that are really important, but how are they going to get the life skills that are required to be able to be employment ready is something I believe the committee needs to look at. From a professional standpoint, like I said, we have a lot of professionals, about 50,000 of us that are professionals at UPS. Digital fluency, is going to be a critical skill moving forward. Data analytics. Just like auto mechanics, I'll find any engineer, please send them my way. We can use them. Anybody that has STEM skills are really, really hard to come by. And we don't create enough of them in our country to be competitive. IT, all disciplines. How are we going to train IT differently? How about boot camps? What can we look at to get this current skills that we need today? Agility, how to be agile. We find that people have a difficult time. The world changes so dramatically, so quickly, that we cannot change as quick as we think we should. So those are some of the skills that we think at UPS that are going to be critical for the committee to look at. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Steve, thanks for that great presentation. You highlighted something that I agree, and I think this is something I'm looking over at Haley right now. We'll start adding to our report. Is I think we made a shift a generation or so ago to every kid going into school, we should get on a college path. And again, we always want to support education in all forms. However, in lieu of doing that, we took out of some of the shop classes and auto mechanic classes and other things that were traditionally in the high school environment. And I'm not sure if you've ever studied some of the model they have over in Europe, specifically Germany, where they work on different career tracks. Are you familiar with any of those type of things that are being done in other areas of the world?
I am. If you want to look at how they really do it in Germany, it's through the apprenticeship program. And I would also encourage the committee to look at the South Carolina's version of apprenticeship. They have some really great things in the apprenticeship, working with their technical colleges, that has made South Carolina the leader of apprenticeships in the United States. So I would encourage you to look at that as well.
That's great. Haley, let's see if we can't get some information on that to send to the committee members. That would be great. Well, one other question that I have in relation to workforce right now, I met with a group of people a few weeks ago, Steve, and all kind of in their early to mid 60s, or even late 60s, who retired during the pandemic. It was one of those times where life seemed to be too short. The stock market had gone through the roof. There was a lot of good reasons to retire, and they did. And they took Social Security early. Now, though, they're faced with the stock market has been a little bit of an up and down, a little more down than up. Certainly inflation pressures have been there as well, and some of those folks both need and want to go to work. However, they're penalized to go back to work for that time, and I'm wondering, because the baby boomer generation is by far our most skilled and reliable generation in the workforce right now, what would your thoughts be if we could find a way to hopefully take the penalty away for a certain amount of time, or if not permanently, to get some of those experienced workers back?
So that's a federal question that I wish I had an answer for, Senator. The penalties on a lot of things, even for people who are disabled, that get some Social Security benefits, make it so that people don't have the ability to have part-time employment. I would think that there were some ways that we could work with the federal government to incent people to continue to work.
I asked that knowing your Department of Labor background, so I thought maybe we could have a further discussion on that one day.
If I can help, I'd love to help.
Okay. Questions from the committee members for Steve?
More of a comment. Thank you, Stephen. I would say that list of skills that you have, if you were to transfer that to Delta Airlines, it would play perfectly. To mirror what a lot of other folks are talking about doing, we're actually removing college degrees off of the job descriptions in a lot of areas, focusing on a skills-first approach. And so what I would encourage this committee to consider is the College and Career Academy model overall. That model of getting to the kids before they graduate to let them know they're better options, so they know what they're signing up for. They already have the competency. They get a chance to try it in a very low-risk fashion. It creates just an environment where our graduation rates go up, our cost per student goes down because more people come prepared. And so I would hope that we would focus on that.
And part of that is to get the right information to our high school counselors. Our high school counselors are products of the education system, so they believe that education is the way to get out of poverty and elsewhere. But there's many other ways that people can do that. So part of it is also to make sure that our high school counselors are equipped with the right information so people can make the right choices.
Yeah, I would agree. Those salary ranges you mentioned were very accurate, well north of six figures in just a few years.
Right.
So good jobs.
Mine is sort of an open-ended question and something I'd also like to make sure that the committee keep us focused on, which is that we've heard a lot of very hard technical skills that are needed in the workforce, and certainly there are no end of those. But I think it's also, you mentioned things like accountability and collaboration and communication skills, which I would call more kind of soft skills, maturity skills, as opposed to professional skills. So I want to make sure that in our conversations we keep a laser focus on those as well. I mean, punctuality is a skill. And in my world, I'm sure as well as Delta, you know, we find that some of our, we have the privilege of being some workers' first jobs, and the job falls to us then to teach them being on time is important. You know, reading the uniform manual is important, and I think those things are just as relevant in today's labor market.
I agree with you, and we don't do a really good job of teaching those skills in our education system as well. So that's something that we could look at.
Just how to handshake, how to give a good solid handshake, I think
How
is
to
important.
look someone in the eyes, those types of skills, yes.
I just wanted to add something to the apprenticeship, and love your comments around apprenticeship and South Carolina model. I do want to thank the governor, the Senate, and the House for first time supporting 2 years ago a base funding for apprenticeships, and then this last year the governor through the CARES funding provided an additional $4 million toward apprenticeships. So very, very proud of where we're moving on apprenticeships, and hopefully you'll be standing there talking about Georgia pretty soon on apprenticeships. But we have a great foundation because of many folks like the chairman here. So thank you.
And may I just make a point on that? If you want to have the best paying career in the United States right now without a college education, you need to be an advanced manufacturing machinist. And if we don't figure out in Georgia how to produce those, we are not going to be successful to continue to have the types of economic growth that we have. Because as jobs continue to be onshored, we may not have as many jobs in plants, but these machinists are absolutely critical to the success of Georgia.
Just a question. Everything you said in your presentation totally resonates with me. One, I want to say thank you for, even in the beginning, explaining all the different kinds of jobs at UPS, because I think one of the challenges in our conversations often is we're talking kind of really entry level or really advanced level, and there's this whole middle section of workers who also need new opportunities so that they can continue to build their careers as well. So thank you for that reminder. I'm thinking about my dad who worked at IBM for 30 plus years. And obviously we're no longer, this is generational, you know, kind of in that mindset so much. But because you mentioned the work that UPS is doing with kind of helping employees either upskill or reskill, I'm wondering, just from a business standpoint, how much tension are you feeling in terms of how quickly people are generally, and you might not have this problem at UPS or Delta, but how quickly people are willing to leave your company for the next company as opposed to really staying and then seeing their career with a growing trajectory all the way through to the end?
Thanks for the question, Senator, and thanks for your support of SMART as well. I understand that's in your district, so thank you. I'm a product of starting at UPS as an unloader in the middle of the night, going to college. So I've been there 33 years. So I grew up with the company into a pretty senior role. It's interesting how if you can't sell what an opportunity is as a company, what's the next step? How many people are willing to jump for 10 cents, 5 cents an hour? We all have to do a better job of having people understand what it can be. All right, so we have some really great paying jobs at UPS. Our drivers are paid very well, as many of you know. And it's a matter of teaching them and talking to them about those opportunities. And we try to, at UPS, we try to have five out of 6 of our promotions within the company. That's just something we try to do. We think it's easier to grow talent than to buy talent. And I think it's just a philosophy that a company has to have if that's what they want to do.
I just wanted to double click on something that the chairman pointed out, which is the pendulum swinging in our education system from sort of gatekeeping and folks not being able to go to college as freely as they could, to the pendulum swinging all the way to everyone should go to college, and if you don't go to college, then you're a failure. And I think that stigma has stuck around us, and it's in our schools. And I'm curious whether Commissioner Dozier agrees with this, but our technical college system is a valuable piece of this puzzle. And too often, if a student says, I'm going to a technical college after high school graduation, they don't get celebrated as much by the community, and not just their parents, but just generally celebrated as much as they would if they were saying, I'm going to Georgia State or UGA. And I think one of the things we need to talk about is how we change not only public policy, but the culture in the state around that pathway of going through technical college or going straight into UPS and you know, upgrading your skills.
I'll let the commissioner answer that.
So I do see TCSG as value. Yeah, you mentioned that, but absolutely, I think we are. The pendulum is moving. I made a comment to someone the other day. We've done a great job in Georgia of showing certain pathways as being true viable pathways for great career earnings and future, meaning welding. We have families across this state who see welding as a true pathway for future success. We have not navigated as many pathways as we need to for that success, building on what you mentioned, and that's something we're working hard at TCSG to do, is to truly educate and see those pathways so that the opportunities both financially and career are seen, because I think that is so important. The other thing is we continue to work extremely hard to make sure that our identity is understood, because as the good overview provided, the identity of TCSG is very difficult sometimes to understand. We provide an opportunity for our adult learners. We provide an opportunity for those looking for a technical skill, and we offer opportunities for someone who's just trying to get their kickstart to a 4-year degree. We issued over 9,000 associate degrees last year. And so as you look at the opportunity of your 22 colleges across the state, it truly is the pathway to any pathway that you may want in your future career. And so I truly appreciate the comment, because there are so many opportunities for true careers that's offered at TCSG and USG, but we don't truly promote it and celebrate it, as the word you use. And that's something we're really working on. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions for Steve? Oh.
Just one other comment. This year we had, I think, 7 valedictorians that chose TCSG as their pathway. So I think that says a little bit also.
That really does, and my data is going to be a few years old, but when I sit down and talk to kids, which most of us get to do, and Senator Estevez, you're spot on, I remind them this was a few years ago, that 7 of the top 10 most wealthiest people on the planet did not have a college degree. If you measure that as your point of success, it's something to keep in mind. It's probably why I'm not doing nearly as well.
Steve, just kind of a funny question. I know when y'all first came to Statesboro, UPS moved to Statesboro, y'all wash the trucks every night. You don't wash the trucks every night anymore. What happened to that?
You know, Senator, I don't know the answer to that.
Labor shortage. All right, Steve, thank you so much for everything you do, your presentation in UPS. Thank you, Nick. Okay. Next, we're gonna get some tag teaming from the Georgia Hotel and Lodging Association. We're gonna have Mark Friday and Raymond Reyes come on up. And I want to thank Chris Hardman, who's I think going to kick us off here, who should be no stranger to all of us in the Capitol as well. And aside from being a great representative for the association, has the unfortunate problem of being one of my neighbors. So.
I'm a lucky man. I'm sure you're going to pass me on the way home today. So, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman mentioned, my name is Chris Hardman. I serve as the Director of Governmental Affairs for the Georgia Hotel and Lodging Association. I want to start off by thanking this committee for their dedication and your time to spend tackling probably the most critical issue that our industry has faced in many, many years, and we will continue to face. For those of you that don't know, I think Ms. Williams actually told you earlier today that the hospitality and tourism industry is the state's second largest private sector employer, generating roughly $65 billion in total economic impact. 420,000 jobs. That was going to be my next statement. So the hotels, which make up a large portion of that industry, actually support over 300,000 jobs, which equates to roughly $22 billion in wages and salaries each year. But that number is down just over 10% from 2019. And in order for our industry to be able to grow and to get back to those 2019 numbers, we need the support of this committee and our innovative efforts to be able to bring us back. I like to say the greatest asset in a hotel, it's not the structure, it's not the amenities you receive or the atmosphere that you have. It's those men and women that work tirelessly each and every day to provide that memorable experience for the over 150 million visitors that come to our state each and every year. And nobody knows that better than the two gentlemen that I have here today with me. We have Mr. Mark Friday that took just about as long of a trip as the Chairman Hickman did, coming from Savannah to join you today. He's with the Planners Inn in Savannah, and then following him will be Ramon Reyes, who is just down the street at the Omni at CNN Center, and actually recently wrote a book about Senator Estevez and Senator Halpern. You guys mentioned about the pathway in a career. He just wrote a book about his pathway in his career in hospitality and how he got to where he is today. So they'll be able to take two very unique perspectives. Though they have different properties in different parts of the state, they have similar struggles when it comes to the workforce crisis that we're in right now. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow, I'd like to bring Mark Friday up.
Welcome, Mark, and thank you for coming up. And while you're doing that, Chris, thank you for the introduction and overview. And I know as we continue our committee meetings, we're going to rely more from more regionally located folks as well from GHLA.
Senator Albers, I'd like to thank you and the committee for doing this. This has truly been, I've been in the business 45 years, and this has always been something that needs to be addressed. Senator Hickman, if you need a ride home, let me know, and I'll... Let me just briefly go over. I was told to give you a little background on myself. As I've said, I've been in the business for about 45 years. Actually came up through the pathway of washing dishes, and there's many a day I wish I could go back to doing that. I worked at larger hotels. The hotel I'm at right now, the Planners Inn, the small boutique hotel in Savannah, has 60 rooms, and I've worked in hotels up to 230 rooms. So I've got a very varied opinion of how some of those work. I had a lot of mentors growing up, and I think that's one of the things that our industry is missing right now. I had Leroy Dukes when I worked in Athens, go Dogs, and Mr. Doug Lambert from Savannah, and I'm thankful for them for all they taught me. The workforce that we have and the workforce that we need within our industry is just so important. I gave the committee a spreadsheet that was produced by the American Hotel and Lodging Association. Now on that is the national figures on the right-hand side, which they published, but more importantly was the Georgia District 2 was what they call it, and that encompasses the majority of the Savannah area. And if you'll look at that, it breaks down the guest spending, the number of properties, number of guest rooms, and what have you. You can look at that at your leisure. I'm not going to go through it. But I gave that to you for the interpretation that we need to understand how much of a workforce that we need. We have in that entire district the hotels, and on the average, they require 135 employees to operate each day. And it's, now, some are smaller and some are larger, it's an average, but it's very difficult to find that many people and that many qualified people to come in there and do what we need to do. Our industry, and we you know, you talked about apprenticeship, and I've always thought that our industry is one of the last apprenticeships there are, because the people that come in, we teach them, you know, how to do specific skills. But more importantly, I think from a workforce development standpoint, and I think the restaurateur at the end mentioned this, we need soft skills. We need people to know how to say yes, sir, and no, sir, and come in on time, and what to wear, and stay at work when you're there. The soft skills that, well, don't laugh, you know what I'm talking about. The soft skills that when we grew up, we had that background, and I think that goes a long way. A lot of the larger corporate hotels, they have their own in-house training programs to do what they need to. But it's just, our business is trying to make guests happy. And in order to make the guests happy, we have to have the employees happy, and we have to have them trained in how to make other people happy. And that seems to be a challenge. I'm not sure why, but I mean, it is. And a lot of that can start within the school system. I mean, it's great for our industry, but I see it actually going into all the industries that we've talked about so far. I mean, it's not just a one-shot deal. Let's see if there's, in Savannah, we have the big Hyundai plant that's there, and we have, I think it's called that Quick Start program down there, where the economic development comes in and they set up their trailer and they teach them how to do what they need to do. You know, it would be nice if there was something or some way that either the technical colleges or the state could put something like that together to teach the soft skills that we need. There's also probably an online component you could do to that. But to me, and I tell my employees, this is such a simple business. You just have to make the people happy. But it's the most difficult thing in the world to do. It's just, it's frustrating at times. Now, of course, you know, my employees say I'm old and I need to retire because that's not the way things are. And I'm like, well, that's the way things should be. And we will not, I mean, there's a lot of other businesses that will be able to do a lot of automation to take care of some of the vacancies that there exists. But we can't do that. We are face-to-face and we're people-to-people. And I think that's what they expect. I appreciate Governor Kemp for doing what he did in opening the state as quickly as he did. I think without that, the industry, it took one heck of a hit, but I think it was minimized by the actions that he took and the forthright thought process that he had into that. So we as a hospitality industry are very thankful for that. I'm especially thankful because some of the buffets are starting to come back. In Savannah itself, and just from a local perspective, I mean, the hotels that we have down there now, and it's interesting because the more hotels that we have, the fewer employees some of the other hotels have. I'm not quite sure how that works, but so we've got about 7 new hotels that are in the pipeline right now, averaging about 100 rooms apiece. So they'll be looking for employees, probably the same ones we have. The industry down in Savannah, the hotel motel tax, just in the Savannah area, is expected to bring in $47 million next year. I mean, to say we have a robust economy, tourism economy down there is an understatement. And I say that just to show to you how important it is for us as hoteliers, but also for the local industry and then also for the state from a revenue standpoint. I know that at Tybee Island, the majority of the hotel motel tax makes up about 50% of their budget. So it's very important for them. It's very important for the city of Savannah. We're fortunate to have an increase. I say fortunate. We had an increase in the hotel motel tax up to about 8% this past legislative session. And with that, what we're going to do is improve River Street, improve the city market area, improve some of the Broughton Street area, and that just brings more people in. So I thank you all for doing that. And let me just close by saying I'll get back to the workforce, and it's just so important that we get some of the people with the soft skills that want to be a part of the industry and that can make it up there. I mean, you can stay in the industry for years and move all around, and it's a great, great industry. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague and author.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Ramon,
Good
welcome.
afternoon. And thank you to all the committee members as well for having us and allowing us an opportunity to share our thoughts. And I was asked to also share a little bit about my career, but I'll double down on some of the very points that were made today with regards to the importance of education. So I'm going to go a little further back. I'm a byproduct of a program of the National Academy Foundation. So my career in hospitality started in my high school years, where I learned the very soft skills that you mentioned. I learned how to write my resume. I learned about a firm handshake. I learned about travel and tourism. But above and beyond that, I learned how important it would be to serve people and how to best execute that. And all of that started in high school. And so I believe that that's where it starts. So fast forward a little bit after that, I began my career as a doorman and had the good fortune of working in every single position within the hotel and that apprenticeship that was discussed. That journey for me was in one building in the city of New Orleans for 10 years, where I had the good fortunes I mentioned of working every single position before going into management. The mentorship along the way, the learnings along the way, all of that was started during those foundational years in high school as well. And so I believe in education. I think needs to be part of our solution as well. Start early on and start exposing people to our industry. Most people that work in our industry, their degrees are in everything but hospitality. But most of them fell into our industry and fell in love with it subsequently because, similar to UPS, we have almost every single position that you can think of. We have sales and marketing, we have engineering, we have anything, culinary as well, anything that basically fulfills your passion and your purpose. And today you hear the term used, often meaningful work. That's what that apprenticeship allows you to do, is find what job and what purpose you have and what's meaningful to you. And so I think, again, starts in the high school years and moves fast forward. So I have the good fortune today to serve as the general manager of the Omni Atlanta Hotel here in downtown. Prior to that, I opened the Omni at the Battery in partnership with the Braves there. And our challenges post-pandemic, certainly because that was pre-pandemic, now post-pandemic, have changed. I have a hotel that pre-pandemic used to have 600 associates working in order to fulfill the needs of our customers. Today, we're just under 400 associates with business that's back to levels where I should have 600 people. And the way I've supplemented that is with H-2Bs, with J-1s, and with contract labor, all of which we would prefer not to have. I would prefer to have associates that work directly for the hotel that are a byproduct of programs here in the state of Georgia. And how we fix that, again, I think is with focusing on those early years in education, exposing those students to a career in hospitality. I am still working with the National Academy Foundation where I mentor high school and college students, but we don't have any programs with the National Academy Foundation that actually are focused on travel and tourism, and I think that's what we need to focus on. I think all the other points have been made, and we've kind of gone pretty lengthy with our time, but those are my comments, and I thank everyone for having us today.
Those are great comments. Thank you. What's the name of your book, Ramon?
Familia. Familia, so it's a charismatic framework to hospitality, to growth in hospitality.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And just want to follow up on what you said, Mark said, and certainly what Ryan said on those soft skills. I think some of that's school. I think a lot of that's parents, though, yeah. Right? And, that's what, I was taught and what I've taught my boys to do. And in today's day and age, I think these are a prohibitor, right? Too much time not actually communicating face-to-face and just texting or using social media. So I think in part of that, maybe the answer is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is schools also have to educate parents sometimes on what they need to be doing at home and to help that gap. Yeah. And I think that maybe sending stuff home saying, are you meeting with your kids and talking about these soft skills and talking about these things, a way to communicate, because there's only so much we can expect a school to do, because a teacher can't be everything to a child, right? They actually have to just be able to teach too. So what are your thoughts?
I agree. Probably one of the toughest things to do, though, is to tell parents how to parent. But I do some work in the nonprofit space as well, and we focus on youth and career development. And in my prior life in New Orleans, and we actually did spend time with the parents and the students and focus on that very subject. Hence why I say it's quite difficult, but I certainly agree with the importance.
All right. Question from Senator Halpern.
I'm wondering, so my family's in the hospitality industry as well. We're restaurants, not hotels. My husband started at like 16 chopping vegetables at a Chinese restaurant, fell in love with it, got like, dishwashing, then got promoted to chopping vegetables, and then anyway, fell in love with it, went to school, and he's been in it his whole life. I'm wondering this question. I'm wondering if you are finding a generational difference in people's love for this industry driven by the fact in the Georgia Chamber, I learned this just recently, that like the largest percentage, you can tell me the percentage, I forget, 80, I'm making this up, 85%, but it's a predominant number of kids graduate from high school now having never worked a job at all.
Yeah.
And in the hospitality industry, it strikes me that this is what, like I worked in a restaurant when I was in high school. Like this is where you would find the love for it. So I'm wondering if you think, if there's a generational piece also to this particular industry, where did people generally fall in love with the industry to decide that they were going to make it a career? Was it before they graduated? Was it after whatever they were doing now?
Yeah, well, I think certainly it's probably different for everyone, but I can share from my personal experience. In high school, I grew a love for travel and tourism. But today, what we're seeing is, applicant flow has increased. It's gotten better over the last couple of years. But those people don't necessarily have an idea of what a career in hospitality looks like or feels like. And that kind of lends to the turnover. For us in particular, again, I can only speak for my hotel. There was 2 years ago, our retention rate was 24.4%. So we weren't retaining anyone because they would come in, try it, and they would basically leave because they didn't know what hospitality was about. The work wasn't meaningful to them. Fast forward, we're around 74% today, so it's gotten better. But I do think that you have to have an opportunity to really be exposed to the industry and learn. Cristo Rey has a fantastic program where we have 4 interns from Cristo Rey at our hotel, and I think a great model for most any high schools to have, to expose these kids to a career in hospitality, and even if they don't want to go in hospitality, to expose them to a place of business, what it means to, again, give a firm handshake and to look someone in the eye and understand how a place of business works. I think we need more programs like that.
Ramon, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate Chris. Oh, hang on, one more question.
Mark, I know back during the pandemic, I know Doug Lambert used some prison labor as housekeeping. Is that all that over with now, or was that just a fad during that time that happened, or is it available now?
Mr. Lambert didn't tell me he was doing it, but I think it was probably just a fad during that time.
All right. Well, again, thank you. Thank Chris and Mark. And Mark, I want to follow up one comment you said about customer service. And I would just say that all the businesses I've ever had or worked at, I've told people the only sustainable advantage of business is superior customer service. So you're spot on, my friend. Thank you. Okay. And now, last but certainly not least, I want to bring up Jasmine and Brett with Select Fulton. We're right here in the heart of Fulton County. And they're doing some great stuff on workforce, and we'll look forward to hearing from them. And we're going to try and keep on track and wrap up here in the next 15 minutes. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can tell your wisdom in that not only did you stack the committee with Fulton representatives, but you put us at the end, so the last thing everyone can hear as you get back into traffic is how great Fulton County is. And Senator Hickman, we welcome you as an honorary member of the Fulton delegation. You can join us. Well, again, my name is Brett Lacey. I'm the Deputy Director for Select Fulton. We're the economic and workforce development arm of Fulton County, serving our employers and the residents of Fulton County to ensure that they are competing for the workforce and opportunities here in Fulton County and to compete for these jobs of the 21st century. Going to do a little bit of relief pitching here for Haley. As the Deputy Director in Select Fulton, I oversee our workforce team, which means that we are in charge of Fulton's local workforce development board. There are 19 boards across the state, and we administer the state's Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding that flows down from the Technical College System of Georgia. So I've got the map up there to orient you. Again, there's 19 of us across the state doing this work. So anything I talk about as it pertains to WIOA, you can get at your home county, anywhere in Georgia. Last year, our system, our public workforce system that's funded with these federal workforce dollars, served over 100,000 job seekers. It's pretty remarkable. That's about just over half of all individuals that claimed unemployment over that time period. So you're talking 150,000 individuals on unemployment. We served over 100,000 in some form or fashion, whether that's enrolling in training or coming to see us for employment skills, job readiness skills, doing labor market research to find out about these jobs. They came into our career centers, and we were able to offer those services to them. The top training programs that we actually enroll them into and support that training, whether it's at the technical college system or another training provider in the state, we saw that line up right with where you're going to see those top jobs in the state of healthcare, IT, and logistics. I'd add, as a personal note, that Fulton County recently made it a $500,000 investment in Atlanta Technical College to build out a new truck driving facility for Atlanta Tech so that they had more opportunity and more space to train truck drivers. As we're kind of maxing that out and cannot get enough students into seats to actually get their CDL, that's part of the problem. The final note that I'll put on this slide is that it costs us just over $5,800 per individual to go through our program. So we're spending just under $6,000 to take an individual who might be unemployed, whether that's an adult or a youth, and get them back into a high-demand career where they are earning, on average, about $38,000. So a $6,000 investment by these federal funds turns into $38,000 in wages. And you can think about how that turns over in the local community, directly, indirectly, what we're able to do and the impact we can make on families just on that $6,000. It's not to say it's all roses and sunshine. We do have some issues there that we're trying to tackle to just do more and continue to provide the workforce that our employers need. There are several areas that we see as kind of untapped where we've not really made headway into the workforce. The first being the long-term unemployed. So these are going to be individuals that have exhausted their unemployment benefits and are no longer in that count of 150,000 individuals who filed with the State Department of Labor. They may have exhausted them or just given up looking for work, and we're trying to get them back into the workforce. Another major barrier that we're trying to get into is individuals who have a criminal background. Again, thank you all for SB 157, which you all unanimously passed through the Senate last year. Got a little hung up in the House on occupational licensing reform to individuals that have a criminal background. Sometimes this was preventing them from getting their license and going into a workforce opportunity. We're looking to sort of streamline those so that the limits that are in place make sense for those occupational boards. I'll also note that particularly here in the Atlanta area, there is the potential for a refugee population, similar to sort of senior citizens, of individuals that have skills, have a lot of experience, but for one reason or another are not entering into the workforce. Some of it may be a credential issue, but again, that's something that I think we could take a look at, is how to rapidly credential them. They may have education or licenses from their home country, and being able to get them into the workforce here in Georgia. And then we see limits that are on full participation in the workforce. So again, those that maybe not filing for unemployment, may not be actively seeking jobs, what those reasons are. The top 3 reasons that we hear from our job seekers that come into our center that they are not able to complete training or go into the workforce are childcare, transportation, and housing. I've grouped those 3 here for you. There are some strategies that are in place. There's some winning programs that can do that. In particular, I'd encourage the committee to look at the state of Mississippi and the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which takes TANF dollars that are already coming into the state, and they leverage those dollars to cover the cost of childcare for individuals, low-income individuals who are in training or some sort of a work experience program. So they're already doing that sort of work requirement of trying to get back into the workforce, but a lot of times that cost of childcare, the paycheck wipes out that check. And so these are funds that the state already has. Georgia does not really leverage this as much as we could, but using those TANF dollars to cover the cost of childcare for those eligible individuals could help remove that barrier so they can get back into the workforce. We also noted we've already sort of talked about the skills mismatch. Jamal talked about it, how some of the job openings don't match the population that we have and the credentials and skills that they have. I'd also add to that there are barriers such as high-speed internet access. We have really seen since the pandemic a number of jobs have moved remote or virtual, and sometimes individuals aren't able to even take advantage of those jobs because they don't have reliable internet at home to be able to log in every day and complete the job. So it's one thing that we're continuing to make investments in and look at how do we make sure that every citizen in Georgia has that high-speed internet access. And then the big thing, what I've got this nice little line graph on the screen for, is something that's called benefit cliffs. And this is a big conversation for us as workforce development professionals. This is a chart that's produced by the Federal Reserve Bank here in Atlanta. They're a tremendous resource for us from a policy perspective. But what you see and what this line illustrates is as an individual increases their earnings, it's going to reflect the public assistance they might be on that's attached to that income. So what ends up happening is that they cross a threshold for which their actual take-home pay drops significantly. There are some programs where it's a long tail, things like the Earned Income Tax Credit. It's a long tail to get them off of that assistance and being able to adjust their budget. There are other programs where as soon as you earn $1 more, you lose the entire benefit. And it changes your household earnings where you're able to afford your grocery bill, able to afford gas in your car, and completely wipes it out. And you see that major drop there at about $55,000. That's where we see that wipe out. So you have workers, we've talked to employers, we've talked to job seekers who will turn down job opportunities. They turn down promotions because they know with that new job and with that increase in earnings, they're going to be worse off. So it's just a policy piece that we can look at and try to look at what levers the state can pull to turn that into a long tail rather than a cliff and encourage individuals to pursue those additional jobs. Again, that's a barrier where, particularly for some of these jobs that are earning $70,000, $80,000, part of the reason we can't find a workforce is because individuals are actively not seeking jobs that earn over a certain income.
Can I just point out also, very true for the top end, we have a dishwasher who doesn't want to work one more shift a week because of that same thing. So it does cover both ends.
Right. So again, they know exactly where that dollar changes and where their take-home resources really change. So those are some of the things from a policy piece that we're looking at. I do want to highlight some great things that we do have in Fulton, and some of these touch on some things that we've talked about this afternoon. The first is we call MAX. It's the Metro Atlanta Exchange for Workforce Solutions. So this is really a collaborative of your educational providers, your industry leaders, your workforce development organizations here in the metro area. And it is a database basically of where we go one, we go all. So if you are an employer, if you are some sort of a provider of resources for individuals focused on economic mobility, you can really tap into all of us as a metro area to be able to partner and provide the resources necessary for an individual to be successful and to really lift up the economic mobility of the metro region. This is scalable. You can take this and move it to any part of the state because all you're really doing is bringing together all of your providers from an education, industry, and workforce perspective, bringing them all to the same table and all row together in the same direction. So we're really proud of that sort of unique piece that we have in the metro region. And the other one that I'll highlight as a partnership is called Airtropolis Atlanta. And so this is a public-private partnership that's centered around the airport that, again, brings together private industry and workforce development along with the community to focus on how do we make the airport stay not only the busiest airport in the world, but how do you staff all of that requires to keep that economic engine churning, not only in the footprint of Hartsfield-Jackson, but in Clayton County and South Fulton County, even over into Douglas or into DeKalb and up Fulton Industrial into Cobb County. There's a tremendous workforce that's there, and so how do we work with that to continue to provide those opportunities? And we've got some programs there where we've invested into actual workforce programs to do that. And then we have two pilot programs that we're proud of in Fulton. The first is called Career Reboot Fulton, and this was funded through CARES Act funding and Rescue Act funding, where we basically took individuals that were impacted by COVID, worked with them on digital literacy and short-term credentials to get them back into the job market faster. To date, we've served over 2,000 individuals with over 600 placed into employment. Those numbers will continue to go up as we continue to get positive outcomes. And then the other is we are very proud that Fulton is the first workforce board in the state that has partnered with the Department of Human Services and the state SNAP office to co-enroll individuals into SNAP employment and training and to WIOA. And so the idea here is really better government to align these programs for individuals that are enrolled in multiple programs, make it easier on them. They can spend more time in training, going to work, and less time dealing with a government office. And the idea is that also that better wraps around the services of those barriers they may have, align those systems so that we can cover the training and those supportive services. We know from our data that individuals who are in training that have some sort of a resource support, be it transportation, housing, or childcare, fare far better than individuals in our training programs that have no support. So we're trying to align that and then roll it out to the rest of the state based on the model that we achieve here in Fulton. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair. I'll turn it over for any questions.
Yeah, Brett, that was fantastic. I couldn't agree more on how sometimes we de-incent people that you mentioned, and Ryan did as well, of getting to that next threshold. And it is something that has to be one of the outcomes of this committee, of what we can do, right, from a state level, or if not, working with our counterparts, whether it be federal or other, to help solve some of those problems. So thank you for that. This was well done. Questions to committee members?
Mr. Chairman, as Brett's up there, Brett, if you could talk a little bit more about the funding mechanism as far as the money coming to Georgia and how it has been declining the last few years. And some of the, since it's primarily focused on the unemployment rate, there's other things that Georgia's missing out on because of how it is appropriated from the federal government. I think that's something we need to see and hear and talk about as far as losing the impact to reskill folks in the future based on that funding.
Yes, the commissioner has probably had his ear talked off about this. So these federal WIOA dollars are, it's the latest in a long line of federal workforce programs. The funding formula has not been changed in over 40 years. It's 3 different buckets: adults, dislocated workers, and youth. And each of those has a major, 2/3 of the formula is based off of things like excess unemployment and poverty numbers. So Georgia has done a great job of attracting business and jobs to the state. We've got a low unemployment rate. And our reward for doing such a great job of getting people to work is less money to continue to meet the need of these employers that are locating or expanding in the state. So you talk about what's going on with the JDA down on the coast and all these great job openings that are coming, but we don't have the resources to train that workforce. Same thing here in the metro area, any part of the state. As those dollars are attached to a lower and lower unemployment rate, how do we invest in and train tomorrow's workforce? So that is one of the challenges we faced. I think over the last 5 years, if I'm correct, the state is down almost $30 million annually. So that is 1/3 of our budget's cut over the last 5 years. There has been some investment from the state in terms of the apprenticeship dollars, things like that. We have done everything we can to cut costs. You know, the Hope Career Grant is a tremendous asset for us of really cutting tuition dollars by sending an individual to school for free. But we've got to find how to make up those dollars, because at the end of the day, when the federal dollars are cut, it means fewer individuals can enroll in our programs and be trained. A number of us have waiting lists of people waiting to be served and just waiting for more funding to be able to enter into training.
Any other questions from the committee members? Okay, seeing none. Brett, thank you for your presentation. All right, it's right at 3 o'clock, so we're going to wrap up here in just a moment. I want to begin or end where we started, which was thanking everyone for participating. You'll see in the back of the room, Allie, wave your hand. Miss Allie Farmer, who helps make all this happen. If you've got questions about what's happening with the committee as far as scheduling, putting things together, Allie is kind of quarterbacking and project managing that process for us. For the committee members, we heard a lot of wonderful testimony today. I've done a lot of study committees, and I found is you can't wait to document stuff until you're in the 5th meeting, because you will forget some of the great things that we heard in the first several meetings. So Haley is capturing all that stuff. I'm going to ask you that if you took down some notes and you had something you're passionate about, to follow up and send those email over to us so we can start capturing them. Also in the back, I see Brad Vaughn with Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones' office, who's helping us out. Thank you for participating, representing our Lieutenant Governor. And the Lieutenant Governor is going to come to one of our future meetings to address the committee. Again, this was his priority, and we're just glad to be able to serve and support that initiative for him. Also want to take a moment to acknowledge, I know a couple of folks mentioned Governor Kemp opening up our state. Being the first to open up the state has led to our state having either at or hovering in the lowest unemployment ever in the history of our state, which has been truly extraordinary. Reminder again, our next meeting is going to be July the 25th in Savannah. I'm going to guess Mark could get you a room at the Planters Inn, and he would be happy to host you with great customer service at a favorable rate. But I hope you do try and bookend your time down in Savannah to enjoy all the wonderful things that part of the state has to offer, and you can get a ride from he and Senator Hickman on the way down. I do want to say one more thing that I think is important. We're hearing a lot of good information, and jobs are so important, and each one of you that communicated today talked about what it means, but it's inspirational to that person for their very first job, where you took a chance on them, whether they worked in a restaurant or a hotel, or they did it through an apprenticeship, or they're being mentored by somebody. But those that are employing today, you made the difference for that person to maybe buy their first car, or their first home, or take that first vacation with their family to build those life memories. So it's very meaningful. And, you know, one of my heroes in this world is Ronald Reagan, and he always said the greatest social program ever created was a job. So the work we're doing today, and we will continue to do over these next many months, is very meaningful. I want to thank you again for your input. This is just the beginning, and we will look forward to many meetings in the future and many meaningful pieces of legislation and budget. So with that, we will adjourn our Senate Resolution 275 Study Committee for today, and I wish you all safe travels. Thank you.